Hey Instagram, hey Facebook. Eric here with Modern Apotheca. Hope you're well. I'm going to give a couple of seconds for some folks to show up. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about ADHD, something that I know quite a lot about. I do have ADHD myself. I've talked about that on our broadcast before. I make fun of myself quite a bit for my ADHD. If you've been seeing any of the video content that's been coming out, the Dr. Herb L. Remedies or Eric Stahl with CBD News, that's my ADHD at its work. At work, it allows me to do some of these things, allows me to have just boundless energy, and I have to stick it somewhere. So someone asked me the other day, well, hey, how do you churn all this stuff out? Like literally, it's almost too fun for me to do this. It's just actually finding a new avenue for my ADHD that I never had before. I've been looking for something. We've been trying to do more and more social media. Just for you guys to know, definitely intended to go on to TikTok. And I was so close to starting TikTok, but then I started seeing all the government warnings, and the research does show that a significant amount of TikTok is actually owned by the Chinese Communist Party, by the Chinese government. I just didn't feel comfortable after reading some of that and hearing some of the warnings about TikTok, using that as a platform for us. So for us, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. You guys are side by side as always. If I'm not making eye contact directly with you, this is Instagram, this is Facebook, just so you know. So I try to make sure I do both. But one thing my ADHD will allow me to do is sit down and make these videos, but I don't have the patience to do it twice. So I'm only doing one video. I'm doing it for both of you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get into the meat of this. So why are we talking about ADHD? Well, for one, CBD has helped me personally quite a bit with my ADHD. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about my ADHD story, but more importantly for the rest of you, what is ADHD? What is ADD? And what are some things that can help us with it? Why do we have it? Well, first, like many of you and many of my followers, I'm an 80s baby. I was born in '84. I was raised in the 80s and the 90s, and a lot of my classmates, we were diagnosed with ADD pretty young. For me, I think it was somewhere in 4th or 5th grade. My brother had already been diagnosed with ADD. My parents were wondering whether I may have it as well, and we went and they kind of said, yeah, he probably actually has ADHD. But we never really did much more about it. I was very active. I played football, was doing a lot of things. At this point, for my brother, he was taking Ritalin. I hope Jeff doesn't mind me sharing a little bit of his story as well, but it's kind of intertwined. If you're in a household like mine growing up, my brother was having attention deficit disorder issues. And so after seeing some of those symptoms in him, maybe I had a couple of those as well, and we started looking at whether I had ADD or ADHD. But at that point, we'd already determined that Ritalin wasn't really working that well for my brother, and Ritalin and some of those drugs and the pharmaceuticals that they use for ADHD are pretty hardcore, can have some negative side effects. And so for me, it wasn't creating any issues at school, and it wasn't having any significant issues. So yeah, call Jeff out. Jeff knows I have his full permission, Katie. But so for me, after Jeff seeing some of his stuff with Ritalin, my parents probably decided, hey, let's not worry about pharmaceuticals or going too much further into ADHD stuff with Eric, and we'll just let it play out. I mentioned this in a podcast that we did before, but I feel like playing football for me really masked a lot of my ADHD. I went to a high school, Spring Valley High School, Vikings. We were 4A football, which in the state of South Carolina at the time was the highest level of football you could play in. We were Big 16, so football was a pretty big issue, a pretty big deal. And it wasn't just football in the fall. It was spring practice, it was spring weights, it was spring training. It was summer 3-a-days. Y'all, you know those summer 3-a-days, man. Those, I don't care if you had the worst case of ADHD and just couldn't sit still ever. You know, you go through some 3-a-day football practices in August in South Carolina, your butt's gonna sleep afterwards. You can't move. And so, you know, through football practice and that being a year-round thing, you know, fall football and then spring training and weightlifting and summer workouts and 3-a-days, there really wasn't that much downtime when you play football. At least for me, I think it's a lot for folks with baseball. It's very similar. You know, wasn't a lot of downtime. And so for me, my ADHD never really manifested itself too much because I was just pouring every bit of that energy and every bit of that lack of attention. I was dialing into football, you know, and so for me, it kind of masked that issue. So for me, I never really dealt with the ADD too much or ADHD in high school too much, other than occasionally, you know, my whole thing was great student, talks too much. Good in class, but needs to shut up, you know? I just couldn't stop talking. I loved talking to my classmates. I loved talking in class. I was probably a little bit of a class clown. If you guys know me, you let me know if I was a class clown or if I was just goofy. I was definitely pretty goofy, as you can see from Dr. Herb Ale Remedies. I didn't lose it. I just embraced it now, right? But so football masked it for me. Didn't really have that much issues. But now, as a 36-year-old with 2 big girls in the house and a baby, 3 kids, a wife, a business to take care of, and very little things like football or activities. I don't really work out. I'm not really great in getting to the gym. My doctor, especially Dr. Adam, has encouraged me to work out a lot, especially be a way of releasing my energy, but I'm not good at that. And so now, in my mid-30s, my ADHD actually has manifested itself in a way that can cause some issues. And so for me, CBD has helped me as an adult to dial back my ADHD, especially when I get really excited. We'll talk about some of those symptoms here in a little bit. But when you have ADHD, you can get really excited and really energized about things that you enjoy. And so I love cannabis, guys. I love CBD. I love hemp. I love small business. I love talking about business and marketing. And so when I do these things and I do the videos or I'm here in the store, my energy level can get out of control, right? And I need a way to bring myself down. And so usually for me, that's gummies and edibles, you know, in the morning to kind of help me last through the day. It might be a CBD vape pen, right? Might be my CBD vape pen that just instantaneously helps you relax a little bit. That's why vapes are so big. I know a lot of folks are not big into vapables and smokables. I get it, guys. I understand. But I will tell you, you can be anti-vape, anti-smokable all you want. But when it comes to instantaneous pain relief and instantaneous anxiety relief, nothing really kicks as fast as in a vapeable or smokable. So that's why we utilize those, and that's why we have them here in our store. So let's dive into ADHD real quick, all right? So what is ADHD? What is ADD? Well, actually, after doing some research, I found that ADD is an old term that we actually don't use anymore. It's actually not a diagnosis. Not since 1994 has ADD by itself been a diagnosis. In fact, ADHD is the diagnosis, and ADD is one of 3 forms of ADHD. So ADHD, hyperactive attention deficit disorder. Hyperactive attention deficit disorder, right? So ADHD, I had it backwards. Attention deficit, guys, it's right there. I had it backwards, right? ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, okay? And there's 3 different types of attention deficit hyperactive disorder. There's inattentive ADHD. That's what we used to refer to as ADD. It doesn't come with the hyperactivity side, just struggling with attention in class and focus, okay? A lot of folks had that. I believe my brother, when he was diagnosed, was actually diagnosed with ADD, with inattentive ADD. So he didn't have the hyperactivity as much, but he had the attention deficit side. Second type of ADHD, hyperactive impulsive. you just get really jumpy and you do all kinds of crazy stuff and you come up with skits like Herbal remedies and, that's me, guys. It's attention deficit hyperactive disorder, hyperactive impulsive. I was explaining to my 6-year-old the other day what my ADHD was, and the example I gave her was, baby, do you remember a couple of weeks ago where your feet were hitting the ground as you were swinging in your swing, and you asked me if I could fix your swing so your feet wouldn't hit the swing? She said, yeah. I said, what did I do next? You went outside and you dug a hole in the backyard. Yeah. For some reason, impulsively, I thought, don't mess with the swing, dig a deeper hole. So I just got out there with the shovel and started digging a hole and made a hole about 1.5 foot deep. And I said, baby, go swing in your swing. Oh, Daddy, this is great. No problem at all. It rained that night, and there was a giant puddle under her swing the next day, and she couldn't use her swing for a couple of days because there was a puddle under her swing. So that's the impulsive hyperactive. I had the energy, I'm going to dig a hole, just go dig a hole, and then I just realized that this made no sense, that in fact it was going to rain, and now she can't use the swing. So what makes more sense is to raise the swing a little higher, take the wasn't even that much harder. So that's the second, guys, and I'm right there in there. That's hyperactive impulsive. And then the combined is combined ADHD. That's the third one. It's where you have the inattention and the hyperactive impulsive. I guess you could say I probably have a little bit of both. My wife would definitely say I also have the inattentive side of things. If a TV is on, if I'm already engaged in something, guys, that's when, you could be shouting it in my ear. If I'm watching the game, if I'm watching the news, if I'm, I have to admit, I watch a lot of Disney with the kids. I'm watching Moana. If I'm watching Moana, if I'm watching, Lion King, the new Lion King with the real animals, I don't hear anything that's coming in here. So there's probably some inattentive there as well. But that's the 3 types of attention deficit hyperactive disorder: is inattentive, what we used to refer to as ADD, hyperactive impulsive, which is impulsivity, and combined, where you have both sides of that. So let's break that down for a second. So ADD, the non-hyper side, the symptoms include disorganization, forgetfulness, difficulty focusing, however, can have hyperfocus on things that they find highly interesting. So you can really focus on something that you really, really enjoy, but if you don't care about chemistry, if you don't care about trigonometry or whatever that class was, right, or if you don't really care about the grocery list that the wife is telling you that you're supposed to go pick up, then you get in the car, you start the engine, you get down the street, and you're like, milk and crap. Right? So that's the difficulty focusing, right? But if it's something that I care about, if it's the game, I can tell you how many points we scored in the first quarter, the second quarter, what our third down conversion rate is, right? No problem at all, because I care about it. So that's another big part of it too. More likely, if you have the ADD, the non-hyper side, you're more likely to go through life undiagnosed, because the hyperactivity tends to be the thing that usually is a trigger for most parents to suggest that their child might have ADHD. So usually if it's just the forgetfulness, the attention deficit, they might think it's something else where it actually is the ADD. So ADD, or the inattentive version of ADHD, is less likely to be diagnosed. Now, let's talk about the ADHD impulsive, which obviously I can speak to a little bit. Hyperactivity, impulsivity, fidgeting, difficulty playing quietly. I still have this problem with my kids. I'll be playing with my 4-year-old, I'll be playing with my 6-year-old. I know the baby is sleeping in the other room. I still shout something, and of course, like, Eric, the baby's sleeping, right? It's not even the kids, it's Eric, be quiet, It's just part of who I am, guys. It's part of embracing it, right? Always on the go. Oh, man. We just lost Facebook. My phone died. So not being prepared. So Facebook just lost their link, but we'll keep going on Instagram. Man, sorry about that, Facebook. We'll catch you later, because I'm not redoing it. So again, if you combine them, though, then you have both the inattention, the hyperactivity, and the impulsivity, and all 3 of those can obviously come together to be quite an issue. So what we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to plug the phone back up. I really don't want Facebook to miss all this. And we will come back with the second part of this. No, we won't. We're going to knock this out, guys. We're going to knock this out. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Sorry about that, Facebook. So, some things about attention deficit disorder. Well, attention is actually a cognitive skill, okay? It's a cognitive skill that you can work on and that you can strengthen. So if you have ADHD, any three of those versions of ADHD, you can actually work on attention because it's a cognitive skill, and it's very similar to long and short-term memory, auditory processing, visual processing, and logic and reasoning. You can do different things and different exercises, right? There's a lot of apps for this now that can actually, improve your mental spasticity, right? And make you able to improve these cognitive skills. Some other treatments. So if you're like me and you're diagnosed or the doctor thinks you have ADHD as a kid, or like my brother who had ADD as a kid, the first thing they start talking about is pharmaceuticals, right? Well, we all know a couple of them. They're stimulants, and they use those to increase neurotransmitter levels. The idea being that it should help you focus your thoughts and ignore distractions. The main two that you've probably heard of, Adderall and Ritalin, right? We all, if you're an 80s or 90s baby like myself, 4 out of 5 of your friends were probably either on Ritalin or Adderall for whatever reason. I avoided that my entire childhood. I never wanted to take pharmaceuticals, but like we'll mention in a second, some studies show that, like me, a lot of my classmates who did have ADD or ADHD utilize cannabis to self-regulate, and that's a very big thing. So we'll talk about that in a second. So what's another thing? There's also some cognitive enhancing medications that they use to improve mental stability and mental strength. There's also some other drugs that lower blood pressure, but they also believe may help with ADHD and energy levels. Often kids aren't diagnosed with ADHD because some of the things that we would hear, and I heard this especially as a kid, oh, he's just a daydreamer, oh, he just marches to his own beat, right? He marches to the beat of his own drum. I definitely got that a lot. He's a bull in a china shop, got that all the time. He just lacks follow through. Those are all symptoms of ADHD, right? If you're daydreaming, you're not paying attention, that's the inattentive side. Marching to the beat of your own drum, that's probably some of that impulsivity side. Lacking follow through, another major symptom of ADHD. So a lot of those drugs that they give you, the stimulants and the cognitive enhancing medications, well, do they work? Yeah, for some people they do work. I know for some folks they do work, but they also have their side effects, and they also have some negative things that come along with them. I can speak to this personally. A lot of my friends have reported to me that Ritalin and Adderall especially messed with their appetite, messed with their weight, made them lose weight, gave them headaches sometimes, messed with their levels of sleep, either inability to sleep or inability to wake up, mood swings and irritability, especially when they came off their medications. And so these are all things that come with the pharmaceutical side of things. Whenever you come off of any type of pharmaceutical, you always should taper off slowly, unless they recommend coming right off. But a lot of times when you stop taking one of these medications right away, you can have some adverse effects. So let's talk about cannabis and ADHD real quick, because that's what I wanted to really talk about, is the fact that there's a lot of studies now and a lot of information out there showing a connection between people finding relief from their ADHD symptoms and cannabis use. Now, some studies as early or going back to like 2007, 2009 tried to connect cannabis use with ADHD, and the studies were trying to showcase that, hey, folks that use cannabis as an adolescent and then stop using cannabis show some of these hyperactivity or inattentive symptoms. But the more recent studies are actually showing the opposite, that in fact the vast majority of individuals, or especially adolescents, who are dealing with ADHD symptoms may very well be using cannabis to self-regulate. One study specifically that came out in 2017 estimated that over 80% of adolescent males with ADHD were using cannabis to self-regulate on a daily or weekly basis. And so for me, that's a big checkbox. For me, I had to hide it from the football coaches. Hey guys, coaches, if you're watching, just so you know, like that was what worked for me. So I had to hide it from the football coaches, hide it from mom and dad. Can't let anybody know. But the one thing that Eric was doing throughout high school and college that was keeping me on par was I was smoking marijuana very regularly, right? And for me, it worked. For me, it helped give me this level of calm. It actually allowed me to focus and really allowed me to keep my energy at bay when I needed it to. So when did I not smoke marijuana? Well, I definitely didn't smoke marijuana after school because I was playing football, right? And I didn't smoke marijuana ever before a football game because I never wanted that feeling during football or football practice. In fact, I wanted the opposite, right? I wanted all of that crazy energy because that's what let me go and play defense and special teams and long snapper and every position I could play and just knock someone's head off. That's what I was all about, right? But that was that crazy energy, right? But when it wasn't playing football, when it was maybe a Saturday or a Sunday and I wanted to actually relax and calm down and get football out of my head or get college applications out of my head or whatever was stressing me out, or my girlfriend at the time, right? Cannabis was my medicine. It was helping me self-regulate. And the study that came out in 2017 is showing that I wasn't alone, that maybe upwards of 80% of adolescent males with ADHD were doing the same thing. So parents, look out for that in your kids, right? If you have a child who's having some issues with ADHD, maybe that cannabis use, maybe CBD and hemp is not a crazy alternative. Maybe it's exactly what they're looking for, okay? So, hey, it's 2020, guys. So let's be a different kind of parent. If you're out there, let's not shun our kids. If this is something that works for them, if it helps them, let's just find them the relief they're looking for. Because, man, what a different life my high school career would have been if I could have been open with my football coaches and my parents and my teachers about, hey guys, when I'm not here playing football, I have to be home and I actually am using marijuana because it's what's allowing me to be an A student. Because guys, I was a really decent football player, at least in my own opinion. I was a starter. I also was an A student, okay? And I had no issues in class. I had no issues with tests. Actually, in fact, my only issue was turning in my homework and paying attention in class. I could learn the stuff, no problem. But I wanted to talk in class, and I never remembered what I did with my homework, right? If I did my homework, or I didn't feel like I needed to do my homework, so I already knew the lesson, but that was my high school career. Definitely continued into college. Now the difference is when you play college ball, you can't be smoking weed and playing college SEC football. As I learned pretty quickly as a walk-on, drug test right away, and I had to make sure that I wasn't using. In fact, I think it maybe changed my trajectory, and I wish I had stayed and tried to play college football at South Carolina a little bit harder. But I was struggling because I had been using cannabis so much up to that point, and then had to stop right away to be able to be eligible and play at South Carolina. And so for me, openness and talking about this. Maybe nowadays, if hemp and CBD was around when I was playing ball, maybe I could be like Gronkowski, right, and endorse a CBD brand, and maybe CBD, which it is now, not using marijuana now, I'm using CBD and hemp-derived products, and I'm keeping my ADHD at bay. And so if your child is dealing with ADHD, if you're an adult and you're having some of these symptoms, talk to a doctor about it, talk to a healthcare professional, but also maybe look into some of these things that we talked about, including CBD or hemp, as a way to regulate and help you get back on good footing. Just want to check to see if I have any notes left here. I think that was the majority of what I wanted to talk about. But guys, thank you so much for your time. As always, I appreciate it. If you found this information helpful, if you believe that someone you know or love is maybe dealing with some ADHD issues, and would love to talk to me about it, have them reach out. I'd love to consult with them and talk to them about how it helped me and how some of the products that I carry here in my store might work for them. But please share this if you can. If you don't mind, please share this video. It's really helping us get the word out. More silly videos are to come. You'll definitely see Eric with CBD news this week. You may even see some Dr. Herbal remedies if I can find some time.
there's some things I'd love to use him for. But no, I don't have multiple personality issues. I'm just exercising all of my ADHD in a very creative way and trying to bring as much educational and informative content to you guys as I can. So thank you so much from everyone here at Modern Apotheca. We truly appreciate your support. Please like, share, and tag someone in this video if you can. And as always, find us online at modernapotheca.us, on Facebook, or on Instagram. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Be well.